Hi everyone, I'm back with another PoE 2 video, and I want to show you something you can do with fracturing orbs. So this might be a bit of like an underestimated currency. Before the launch of the Dawn of the Hunt League, a lot of people were really hyped about this coming to Path of Exile 2. This was a thing in Path of Exile 1 already, where it allows you to fix one affix in place, and then when you reroll the item or for example use Chaos Orbs, the affix would stay at all times. Now in PoE 1 this makes a lot more sense because there are actually a dozen different ways to reroll rare items, completely randomize them with lots of new stats under certain circumstances, and maybe with like higher weights for certain affixes and so on, like harvest crafting and fossil crafting and just chaos spam. But in PoE 2 we don't have anything of that nature actually. So when I saw that fraction orbs are coming, it seemed like kind of like useless to me, at least in the current state of the game. It does seem like there might be more crafting stuff coming fairly soon. This is why they're introducing it already. Maybe it was just ready and the next thing is coming sometime down the line soon, maybe in the next update. But for now, they don't really do much because, well, what can you do when you fracture an item? Well, you can, take an item like this here, let's say these pair of boots, and I can try to fracture it, and then with a 1 in 6 chance I would hit my movement speed here or my life roll or my prefixes, locking them in place. And then when I, for example, decide to chaos them, then I would not destroy the item immediately by not being able to remove that movement speed roll. Obviously, a pair of boots without the movement speed is dead, and in that case, you would just move on to the next item basically. Well, this is something that fracturing orbs can do for you. On the other hand, the chances of that even happening are quite not low. Even if you have only 4 mods on an item, the minimum to use it, that's a 1 in 4 chance to hit a mod that you want to keep. And there's also a 1 in 4 chance to hit a mod that, well, you want to get rid of, right? Because if you actually think about using something like the fracturing orb, then most likely you actually have a mod on the item already that you don't want. And it can just as well hit that one, and then you're stuck with it and the item is dead anyway. So right now it seems like the fracturing orb just doesn't really help you much in like making items. It like maybe slightly improves the odds of you, not destroying the item with a chaos or so, if you actually hit the fracturing orb on the right thing, but that's about it. But there is one interesting thing that it can do with fracturing orbs, which comes with the Recombinator. And that is actually pretty powerful. So I'm going to show you an example here right now. We have 2 belts and I'm going to try to combine them. Just for science, basically, to show you off. And the thing is that when you take the Recombinator, if it is successful, so if you put these 2 items in, let's say we choose the fire and the cold dress here, we have a 100% success chance. Most of the time this is way lower when you take actual good mods, like you have a big life roll here, for example, and then, I don't know, let's take the armor roll here. The chance does go down, and if that chance fails, both items are destroyed. And the thing is that when it's successful, it will choose one of the existing bases and then put those chosen mods together on that base as a new item basically. And what happens is when you have a fractured stat on this, then this fracture will stick to the base that is chosen. So for example, if you fracture both of these items, you see this here, which we fractured the armor and we fractured the flash charges used. And if we now choose to combine these items, we keep the same chance for success by, for example, choosing those 2 low tier mods. I'm just going to use that to demonstrate this right now. But it will choose one of those 2 bases and it will have that fractured mod from each of those bases here. So you can see this here. It shows this one that had to reduce fast charges used. And even though we only recombine 2 stats, this fractured mod is attached to this item. So it cannot be removed, and that includes the recombination. And that is actually a really powerful effect now. And the reason why is because the chances for actually hitting a successful recombinate is extremely low when you try to combine multiple good rolls or even just 2 good rolls. So if you have something like this here, we have like a really high, tier 8 physical damage, for example, on this spear. And then we have like, percent fizz here. We try to combine those 2 mods alone. That already gives us 19% chance. And this percent fizz could be way higher. I think this goes up to 170 or so. If I had that kind of mod, the chance for success would probably be something like 1% maybe at that point. And obviously that is really rare. But even so, if we try to do this and we are successful, we can then try to cheat a 3rd stat onto the item that is fractured, and we don't have to pay the chance for success reduction basically. Because for example, let's say we had this mod fractured here, the increased fizz and accuracy hybrid, it's like a tier 3, also a relatively low mod, but let's say this was a fractured mod on this item. I could get this one for free if the right side base is chosen without having to pay the cost, where otherwise when I try to click this, my chance goes down by, you know, to 1/6 of what it was or something like that. So, you know, it's like 6 times less chance basically to hit it, but the fracture would give it to me for free. And in fact, depending on what you hit with your fracturing orb, if it's actually a good mod, you know, let's say, for example, we take this spear here on the right and we try to fracture this, and maybe we hit the physical on this. Let's say we do this, I got the lightning. But, you know, imagine that was the physical roll, then I wouldn't have to choose this, you know, very expensive, basically, or very rare affix of the tier 8 physical damage mod. And if this base is then chosen as one of the 2 outcomes as the base, then I could get this for free, and I could just choose something that actually gives me a very high chance to recombinate. You see this here, for example, this is 63% instead of the 19% when I chose this mod. And, you know, if this was like a decent mod, let's say this was an attack speed or something, you know, if you slam this, you can see if you get anything else that you might want to combine. Here's a +3 to melee skills, for example. So this could be something if you're playing like a melee-oriented character. And, well, you see, this is also a low chance, but, you know, we don't have to do something like this where the chance just goes way down. Now, the thing is, obviously, you have to make sure that this fracturing orb actually hits something that you kind of want at least. So in my case, if I fracture a lightning damage roll, even though I'm playing lightning spear, I don't want this. It's like one of the prefixes I don't really care about. Maybe if it's like a tier 9 roll and it's like really high and, you know, I still have a decent physical damage on it, maybe I'll keep that. But realistically, I don't really want that. You know, you want to combine like, you know, percent fizz, flat fizz, and something else. But if it actually hits a mod that is like in some way useful, even a suffix, you know, there's crit bonus, there's attack speed, there are skill ranks, and so on. There's a bunch of stuff that, you know, could just be like a nice extra basically to have on the weapon. And getting just that as a fracture would be really good. But of course, you know, if you actually manage to hit a fracture on something like, you know, this tier 8 flat fizz, then you kind of hit the jackpot, because it massively improves your odds of actually recombinating something successfully. And then you just, you know, press a button and, well, they're gone. But either way, I guess you get the idea. I think personally, looking back at Path of Exile 1, fracturing orbs were a really cool introduction in that game, and I'm really glad to see that we have them in PoE 2 now. But on the other hand, I feel like besides this recombinating stuff, they seem fairly useless. But this recombinating stuff might be pretty unintuitive for people, might not be, you know, really something that people are aware of, and you can make some pretty good stuff, especially in Trade League when you can potentially buy, you know, dozens of fracturing orbs or something like that, and then a bunch of bases that have, you know, one really good mod, maybe for very cheap. You can just, you know, try your luck with the fracturing orbs, combine them, and then eventually you might get actually an outcome where you have, you know, 3 really high tier mods, especially when it comes to weapons, where you want to combine, you know, like fizz and flat fizz and, you know, the hybrid fizz with accuracy, for example, or, you know, maybe other stuff where, you know, you want to combine boots that have 35 movement speed with some life or something like that. You can actually do this pretty realistically in Trade League, I think. So if you're smart and you go for some of those, like, you know, kind of very unlikely outcomes and then try to hit the fractures, you could actually recombine this with very high chances, because you can just choose some kind of like, you know, mid-tier mods that don't draw down the chance too much, and you still have the fracture mod that comes with the item, and you can keep going with that. In any case, that's what I have to show you for now. It's at least something when it comes to crafting, but obviously, like, these fracturing orbs, at least SSF-wise, are so rare. Like this was like 3 fracturing orbs out of maybe 5 or something I found the entire league, basically. They are not very common, despite me farming a lot of those like cleansed maps, but it is what it is. So I hope this helps you. Let me know what you think, or if you have found any other good uses for the fracturing orbs, for example. So maybe there's like some, you know, very specific base types or whatever that, you know, makes them really valuable. So I didn't really like go through every single piece now to discuss every single stat you could fracture or something. But if you have some good ideas, let me know. That's it. Hope you enjoyed this. Hope this helps you, and see you guys next time.